Welcome to the Y'all Be Good podcast. I'm your host, Ralph, and as you know, we are a project of Little Lion Cuts. Today, Heather and I sit down with Jodi and Alan Williams, and this episode is truly special to me personally because Jodi is not only a teacher, an educator, an all-around beautiful human being, but she's also a huge reason of why I went into the arts. So buckle up, sit back, and y'all be good.
Let's go.
Anyway, we had been playing around for a good while on what the podcast would be, and we've been kind of narrowing it down to just hearing people's backgrounds and stories. We have so many families that come through, and we just get to meet you guys. And then I was thinking, well, obviously, I tell everyone and their mom that I love musical theater, and I did it forever. And so we just kind of had to make it happen. We had to get you guys in. Jodi, I was thinking, I've known Jodi, or Jodi has known me.
I was going to say, it's probably the
24,
easier way to look at
24
that.
years now? Oh my gosh.
It's been a long time, yeah, because
That's kind of crazy.
I was a freshman.
You were like part of the first group.
When did you start at Bradford?
2001.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I graduated in 05, so it was the
Yeah,
first
you were my
group.
first group.
Goodness. I'm sorry if there was ever anything that
No, actually, it's funny because I was at the 100th band concert last night, 100th anniversary of the Bradford band. So many alumni came back. And we were talking about those groups that were those early groups when everything was really integrated and Brad was conducting, and like, yeah, there was just something different in the water back then.
It feels like it. You know, I've kind of narrowed it down to lack of, and this might get a little, I feel like an old man saying it now, but I feel like there was a lack of technology.
I hear that from a lot of people.
I think that that's a false equivalency, though, because I mean, there was always some kind of gadget or something that was occupying the time of the kids.
Yeah.
Back in the 90s, back in the
permanently
80s.
attached.
But it
But
wasn't
that-
attached.
I mean, I understand that it's not that ever-present thing that where you have the universe's knowledge in your hand. You
Yeah.
know, that's a little different.
ChatGPT.
Sure, but don't get me started on ChatGPT. But it is interesting that there's always something that the adults or that next generation kind of points to and says, this is the reason
For sure.
that you're different. This is the reason that I can't identify with you, right? It's something. It's like, let's totally discount the fact that you're 15, 20, 25 years older than these kids, right?
Very true.
And that's an entirely different head there. But no, it's a thing.
I don't know that
always
it's
a thing.
necessarily a not being able to relate, because there's also always things you can relate to people with.
Sure.
But I think the 3-second attention span is which comes from instant videos and scrolling and all of that. I think they are so used to, and honestly, we started hearing that when we were kids.
Yeah.
You have an attention span no longer than 30 minutes because that's the block of TV scheduling.
Oh,
So,
sure.
But if you can't sit still for more than 30 minutes.
You're kind of fulfilling prophecy now because your classes keep getting shorter and shorter. So pretty soon,
They really?
You'll just have TikTok classes.
Yeah.
You'll 5 minutes and you're on to your next one.
Not even
It
30
feels like it.
seconds.
Oh my
It feels
gosh,
like
it's
it.
crazy.
Wait,
Because at one point you had like 90-minute.
I had 90
blocks.
minutes. We had block scheduling.
Yeah,
I remember those
And that
days.
was fabulous. That was wonderful.
Yeah.
And now we're at 50 minutes
Yeah, if that.
Why did they change it?
so that they could have more kids and fewer teachers, quite honestly. That started with Act 10 when they they laid a lot of people off. They restructured the day. So there were 8 classes at that point, and they were 45 minutes.
Yeah.
It was off. That was a terrible year. But they put more kids in the classes. So, and that's just been a regular trend, unfortunately. Class size goes up, the time you have with the kids goes down. So next year, I think when you were, like, your group for those first few years, my class in particular, because it was deemed a safety issue, was capped at like 16 or something like that.
Oh, wow.
And now next year my cap will be 30.
Okay.
30 kids with power tools.
30 kids in the shop.
Yeah,
You've been in there.
of
You
course.
think about that.
Oh my god!
It's just, I mean, it's.
Did they work in groups of like 5?
I try to keep it to 4 because once you hit 5, there's always one person sitting doing nothing.
Yeah.
Sure.
Always one person sitting. Groups of 3 or 4 are really best, and you can't do what we do alone.
Mm-hmm.
It's not safe to do it without a partner, at least. But that limits me to, I literally get like 5 minutes with a group,
Sure.
and then the class is over.
Yeah.
So it slows everything way down.
Yeah.
And then they're sitting and waiting, and then they get distracted, and then they pull out their phones, and and it doesn't matter that they're not supposed to have them. And they're actually, honestly, it's not been a fight. They're really good about putting them away when I ask, which is great.
Yeah.
But they're not going to sit there and do nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So they sit there, they pull out their phones, and
And the interesting thing to me is that I've only been working with the department now for about 10 years. And, they get them in class and then I get them in rehearsal afterwards. And it's been a learning process for me to say, okay, well, we're going to rehearse for 5 hours. I'm going to give you this break and then blah, blah. And that just doesn't work. You can't hold their attention. You can't get them to focus on a show or their part for that long. So, it's making those adjustments and trying to put everything into these bite-sized digest pieces so they can, they feel that they're making progress. And when they get excited about it, okay, great. Now I can focus on this. But even then, you can see that critical barrier that they hit, that it's like, I've been doing this for 3 hours. I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
And you can just see them burn out right in front of you. So it becomes interesting that way as well.
Well, and then with the shorter class times and the more classes, they're being burnt out with that because that's so much new information every single
day.
Class. Ugh.
And I get how they don't want to spend an hour and a half on math. That was always the argument when we had block scheduling.
That they didn't want to.
It was the math classes that the kids were like, it's so much information.
Well, extend the arts and shut down. Shut down the other ones.
It goes back to that whole thing. Are we there to serve the other? And I've had this discussion with lots of people in different areas. Are the arts there to serve the core subject? Or at this point, at the high school level, are the core subjects there to serve the arts? Because we're where, honestly, the arts and the VOTEC programs, we're where they're going to go to look for the jobs that they're going to do afterwards.
Yeah.
So at that point, who's serving who?
Yeah.
And also, you can't get I've got so many kids, I can't do math, I'm not good at math. It's like you just haven't had a real reason to apply the math.
Yeah,
you don't know how it connects because you've just had math floating around as this subject in space. And then it doesn't make sense unless there are some people that really grab onto math and that's their thing. But people who love math in the abstract are so rare.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But once you say, well, you're not doing math, it's shop, it's different.
Sure. Of course.
Then they can start saying, oh, well, that makes sense. It's like, yes, now you know why you learned all that stuff.
I made those little sliding doors behind us over here. And you see that little angled piece?
Yes.
For the life of me.
Times
For the life of me. The math it did not math. And I was so frustrated. I actually think I ended up just not even mathing it. I think I traced it. And I was just like, okay, this is where the cut needs to be.
Okay, but see, there you go. That's applied knowledge. That's applied learning that you said, okay, well, this is a way that I can get to that same result.
Exactly.
Right. And I, to your comment about are the arts there to serve the core curriculum or vice versa, I am all about the athletics programs at Bradford. I am a big sports fan myself, and I think it's wonderful that they celebrate these kids when they go to the NBA or the MLB, or like just recently had a football player who's going to be playing with the Patriots.
Really?
Right? And we all know Melvin Gordon, and we all know those big names, right? But and again, this is not to take any wind out of the sails of the athletics programs, but when you see how many kids go through the athletic programs at Bradford who end up professionally, that's a very, very, very small slice of people.
Yeah.
Yet the people who work in the entertainment industry that have been through that KUSD theater program, it's multitudes of kids. We have kids on Broadway. We have kids that are professional stage managers who are doing corporate gigs, who are writing curriculum. I mean, I think of Jen Sinnen, who traveled coast to coast with a partner in a pickup truck doing educational theater with little kids in these rural communities that didn't have access. That's fundamental. That's life-giving. Yeah. And that is a typical story for these kids that go through these programs that have their sights on that. So, it's vital for, not only these kids, but it's vital for a healthy society that they have that kind of exposure and that ability to express themselves through the arts and have that as a viable vehicle for them to make a living.
Very much so.
Yeah.
Putting that to I don't know what program you'd put that into, like PTA or whatever, but having all these kids listed, because they always have like old sports photos from the 1920s up, but what about the kids now?
I went out to the stadium, which is wonderful to have the stadium. That's fabulous. I'm sorry, I don't know if that's close enough. I keep moving. I don't sit still well.
That's fine. That's why the arm is
is movable. Yeah. And they have up on the wall where the folks in the stands can see it. Bradford players currently in the NFL, and they've got their jerseys with their Bradford numbers, which is really cool.
That's very nice.
So I'm like, we really need to start putting that in the lobby of the theater. Yeah, these 100%. Kids that are
doing the
working
thing,
professionals, and they go all the way back to, pre your generation.
Oh yeah.
Bethany Thomas has been performing since she left Bradford.
Sure.
So
I think of the kids that I only went to Nebraska with you guys a few times, but I remember the kids that were getting literally recruited off of the stage to go work in New York and Chicago.
Wow.
And Holly's like, no, you can't have
because
them
these
until they
playwrights
graduate college.
and these playwrights and these producers and these choreographers would see these kids that were performing, and they're like, we have to have you. What are you doing next year?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
And then Holly would get in front of them and say, no, they're going to school. That's what they're doing.
Wait, let's backtrack for a second, because I don't think we covered this. You both work at Bradford?
So I'm a regular teacher full-time there, and Alan has been directing. He started doing shows with Bob over at ITA first, as an after-school position, and then jumped over and started playing in our sandbox.
Sure.
Yeah,
for those who aren't local, sorry, Bradford's one of the main high schools here in town. It's probably the biggest.
I don't know anymore. Honestly.
It was for a long time.
At one point.
It was until they built out Indian Trail.
Yeah. Sure. Okay.
And now I think it kind of bounces depending on the population.
Anyway, sorry.
Yeah.
I'm assuming people from India are listening.
That would be amazing.
Oh, sure.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry, you were.
Or people like me who live in the area, but I didn't go to school here.
Miss Waukegan.
I grew up in Waukegan.
Okay.
So I didn't. We've talked before, but I always thought. I don't know what I thought. I knew you guys both did theater.
Well, and Kenosha's it's got a lot of high school options.
Yeah.
Oh God, yeah.
They do now.
For a small school,
huge.
I should say for a perceived small community.
Yeah.
It's actually got.
Well, people don't understand how big Kenosha actually is. It's spread out. The county goes on forever, and it's the third largest school district in the state.
I think we're the fourth, because I think it's Madison, Milwaukee. I think Green Bay.
Although
we might be.
I know that we're
back and forth
with Green Bay.
We're getting there. I always tell my Dallas friends and family there. I just tell them Kenosha is the definition of a little big town.
Yeah. So's Milwaukee for that matter.
For sure.
Milwaukee, you blink and you drive through
it. But here, it does feel like people who are from here stick around, but
they come back.
Or they come there are a lot of boomerangs.
But you're also all over. Right now, David Murray is in Australia.
Yeah.
You go to Australia and you run it. I was going to mention back to the people who have like gone on. I think two things, because we went over it really quickly. The 90-minute block that we had, and now they're cutting it down shorter and shorter. I mean, with 30 kids to a class, we had, what'd you say, like 16 when I was I was there, and I think that's why like you're here now, because we created and cultivated such a relationship, not only being with you for 90 minutes a day, because it was every day, right?
It was every other day.
Was it every other day?
Yeah,
I
'cause it
can't
was
remember.
the AB schedule. But I mean,
Oh, that's right.
Well, when you throw rehearsals into that,
Yes.
yeah,
You
I saw
guys-
you more than I saw my own kids
Yeah.
for a little while there.
Oh,
I
yeah.
remember that. And who was it? Ben?
Ben,
Yeah.
And Ben would come, and he was a toddler.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. I remember you went on maternity.
I was
Mm-hmm.
very right at the end.
I feel like I
Right
do
at the
remember
end. Yeah, with
you
Brody.
being pregnant, and then you
yeah, like
had been
On a 60
running around after.
extension ladder,
I was
pregnant out
not on
to
a s-
holy cow.
was I?
Well,
No,
so,
okay.
So here's the thing, though, and I'm gonna shamelessly plug my wife. I watching Jodi work for the last 30 some odd years, and watching her interact with students, professionals, casual people, what have you. Everybody who honestly connects with her, everybody who honestly works with her, ends up loving her, and she just makes this impression with the people that she works with.
Absolutely.
And it's not just professionalism.
Sure.
Because I mean, she's one of the most professional people I know in a
Yep.
work environment. I've seen her go into absolute maelstroms of chaos, and just everything calms down when she can start,
Orchestrating.
just really,
Yeah.
honestly, she's
Yeah.
like an air traffic controller.
Sure.
She just gets it all. She makes it all land, and she does well. But it's her ability to communicate and connect with people, and let them understand that she is there for them. Like,
Absolutely.
this is the reason that I'm here.
Yeah.
And it's you. And to see the people that she's been able to work with and touch come back, or talk to her, or talk to me. Oh, I know your wife. And then they'll give me this huge story about, oh yeah, I went into the trades because
That was wild.
your wife proved to me that it was something I could do.
Absolutely.
And she's been doing this now for 30 years in one way or another. And I just think about, yeah, the world's a better place because of my wife and everybody she touches.
For real. No, that's and that's 1,000%. Honestly, when I was thinking about this episode, I thought about you and I thought about Holly Sandfield. No offense, Alan.
Yeah, no.
You came into my life much
Totally
later.
fine. Totally fine. Still waiting on that haircut. That's
No.
totally fine.
It's coming. It's coming. Tuesday. And no, but I think about you guys, and I think about what a lasting impact that has been. And honestly, I hope high school students have that kind of experience. And I don't know if it's happening anymore.
It is. And that is really one of the things that's kept me at Bradford, aside from the fact that I had this amazing artistic partnership for, 23 years.
Sure.
First of all, how amazing is it that I get to be the person I needed when I was a kid?
Sure.
Like, that is the whole of the joy of the job.
Yeah.
Is I grew up and got to do exactly what Kathy DeNabriga did for me when I was 12 years old.
Mm.
And that's phenomenal. But there are so many people specifically at Bradford, and I think it's really the core of that building, that there is someone in that building that can reach every kid.
Yeah.
Even as
Sure.
pared down as we are now, even with cuts, there are amazing deans, there are dedicated counselors, there are teachers that will go sideways, backwards, above and beyond. There is somebody for every kid in that building.
Awesome.
I really, really believe that.
Nobody becomes a teacher because they're in it for the money or the accolades
Or the fame.
or the fame.
Or the fame, yeah.
It's just not there,
Sure.
right? And nobody becomes a teacher because, oh, well, I'll have my summers off. Like that's not the thing.
Yeah.
If you run into a teacher in that building, or mostly any other building really, they're there because they want to be there. And that is a unique quality in a human being.
Absolutely.
I can't. I come from a family of teachers, and watching them struggle and come about their own, revelation or epiphany moments that Jodi had is quite something. And it feels good that I can support that to a certain extent.
Yeah, of course.
So,
yeah. All right. Before we get too far into this, I do want to go back a little bit because I know, Jodi, from our talking, Alan, a lot of times we talk about Boston. We talk about New Orleans.
Oh yeah.
And so I don't know how all that fits into your guys' story because there's also Greensboro,
Yeah.
North Carolina.
Yep.
So walk me through that. Let's see.
Oh my gosh.
Oh.
Do you want to go first? Or do you want me to go first?
Where are you looking to go, bud? I mean, that's
Okay,
kind of,
so
here's the thing. Both Jodi and I grew up as nomads.
okay,
All right, we did not have a fixed address.
Yeah,
for the longest
so
time.
but why
for
is that?
Kids.
For me,
Various reasons.
for me, it was my dad was in the service, so I was an Air Force brat.
Example A, right?
And then when he got out of the service, it was very hard at that time for veterans to find jobs because he was served during the Vietnam era, and there was a lot of unfortunate flack that those guys got just for what the choice that they made to go into the service.
Sure.
And so it was very hard for him to find a job. So he went home to Vermont, which is where my family is all from, and could not find work. So after he got out of the service, we bounced around a little more and landed in North Carolina. And that was, at that point, he kind of, I shouldn't say he and my mother decided we're not moving anymore.
Gotcha.
They got tired of it.
They got tired of it. And this is where we're staying.
Yeah,
And it was, I've given my dad grief about his choice of where he put his foot down. We've had words. But ultimately it was not horrible, and I found theater there.
Awesome.
And they are still in North Carolina. My sister never left. They're in different parts of the state now, but they stayed down there because they liked it, and I ran away as soon as I could, back up north to where there was climate. And, but college, I went to college in Greensboro, and then my first job right after college was just north of Boston. And that was where I thought we'd stay because that was the city that I love, Boston.
Oh yeah.
That was like
100%.
Yeah.
that was the city that I was gonna live in.
Oh man.
But even 30 years ago, it was hella
so
expensive. It was
Really?
just, well, we looked at houses in Cambridge thinking, oh, yeah, it's not
Sure.
Boston proper. We'll be able to get something.
We looked at oh my God, we looked at an apartment in Jamaica Plains for
Yeah.
crying out loud, and that was
We're not living here.
Is that why everybody robs banks? Is that a
that's
Art
why.
museums mostly?
art
Art
museums?
museums.
Okay,
That's
gotcha.
what they are. They rob in Boston. Yeah, and then we move out here, and gosh, we got an apartment for a steal out here.
Wait, so you guys met in Boston?
No, we
No, we
met
actually met in North Carolina.
Greensboro.
Yeah.
Alan, what were you doing in Greensboro?
God only knows, man.
So now this is a third city that I got to add to the repertoire.
Not really.
He followed a girl that wasn't me.
Yeah, I did.
But that's okay because I didn't know him at the time either.
Yeah,
That's
I was. So I went to school in New Orleans. My mother. So I'll back up. My mother went through a period of trying to find out who she was.
Sure.
And she was kind of on the hippie scale, if you can believe that.
I do.
Yeah. And so we had kind of a free to be you and me tree hugging commune life for a little while, bouncing around. And then she decided that she wanted to go into blind rehabilitation. And at the time she had decided to do this, there was not like one big university program, any specific place. So we bounced around from school to school for a little while she got some rather specialized education and training. Western Michigan University among the weirdest one. Shout out to Paul Punchilla, who I don't even know is alive anymore, but he's a really neat guy. And eventually we moved down to Texas, and she worked for the Lighthouse of the Blind and for a while there. And that did not last very long, and she decided to broaden her horizons, and that's when we moved to New Orleans. And
all right.
so I was in New Orleans for high school and whatnot. And I was working EMS, and I had met a girl, and she was going to go to Greensboro for school. And I had no ties anywhere. I was, like, why would I stay someplace? So I followed her. And yeah, we were both in questionable relationships at the time.
That's kind of how it goes.
Yeah.
right?
That's how it goes.
Yeah.
And it was funny too, because a lot of we knew same people.
Yeah, like we circled each other
Yeah.
for like 2 years
Yeah.
before
yeah.
we actually met.
Right.
And
Yeah.
then our friend groups kind of collided.
Yeah, that was kind of odd. And everybody that knew us, we didn't know each other, but everybody who knew us kept saying, "Oh, you'd be perfect for Jodi if you weren't with this other woman," and stuff.
Yeah, and same. And
Right.
yeah,
It was very weird.
it was.
Like they tried to ship us, but we were,
Sure.
still anchored.
Or otherwise shipped.
Yeah, otherwise shipped. And we decided to get out of a couple of bad
Yeah.
situations. And
How old were you guys around then?
very young.
Was I even 21?
Yeah. Oh gosh, don't make me come off as a creep
No,
here.
no. It was like I'm like because I graduated like before I was 22. So I was 21.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you were 23.
But so we were in Greensboro, and I was still working EMS, and she was in school, and then
It just so happened that my house was closer to the hospital. Like my house was where everybody came. Like
Yeah.
I had a house,
Cinder
the
block
Cinder Block Palace, 3-bedroom house that I like moved into with my
with a
college
bunch of
roommate.
guys.
No, the first time it was girls.
bunch of
The first
guys.
year it was girls, and
Ended
then
up being
then the
guys.
girls left, and then it was all the guys. So it was me and several guys, which made my mother incredibly uncomfortable. But my grandmother was like, "Well, she'll be very well protected."
Yeah.
I'm like, "Thank you." Mom."
Sure.
So, but my house was where everybody came. It's where everybody crashed. It's where everybody partied because we had a big living room, we had a kitchen.
Sure.
Um,
So you've always been this way. You've
Oh,
always been
oh.
the
Yeah.
yeah.
the hospitable, open spirit. Yeah.
That's
But-
the definition.
But the hospital where he worked was closer to
Your
my
place
house than
my
his
place.
house. So when he would do long shifts, I would come home and he would be
There being Alan on your
on the
couch.
couch. There was one time when I came in and he had a particularly nasty day in the ER and he was literally covered in blood.
Yeah.
And I come home and I turn on the lights and he's laying on the couch and he's covered in blood and I think I screamed.
Well, almost woke
Jeez.
me up.
That
as
was-
I recall.
that was funny.
Yeah.
Alan, that's kind of your day job, right? Like you've been in medical field in one way, shape, or form.
I've bounced in and out of healthcare most of my life.
Okay.
And that's kind of my happy place.
Yeah.
I can no longer physically do that kind of work.
Sure.
So, I support it on the coordination and HR side now
Gotcha.
and try to make it as smooth and
Sure.
happy as I can for other people to do good work.
Nice.
So,
Yeah. Very
Yeah.
cool. What's your position now?
My official position is that I'm a healthcare recruiter
Oh.
for this
Yeah.
the system that I work in.
Yeah.
And I mostly focus on lab, but I'm also something of a SWAT recruiter. When other people need help, other areas need help, because I've recruited, physicians, EVS, food service,
Wow.
whatever. So
You're the go-to guy.
I wouldn't say that.
I'm
I
going to
would.
say
I
that.
would.
I'm going to say that.
I would. He also just stepped down from being doing emergency coordination, although he still does it. So
Sure.
when they need to get supplies from one place to another in an emergency.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Sorry, I got to brag on you because you're awesome.
But yeah, so
Very cool.
like that. But then she graduated and got a job north of Boston.
Yeah, that was really cool.
And again, I had nothing tying me to Greensboro.
Sure.
So I followed another girl.
So you follow another girl.
And this one worked out.
And this
Yeah.
one worked out. She did her little Bo Peep thing. And then next thing I know, it's 30 some odd years later and I'm still following her around.
And you're still following her around.
Yeah.
Did you guys get into theater then? Like, were you guys always kind of doing the arts?
Well, that's what I went to school for.
Okay.
I actually graduated. My degree is actually in design and technical theater.
Awesome.
And the job that I took just north in Massachusetts, in Andover, was as the assistant technical director for a boarding school up there. And I didn't think I would love being at a boarding school, but it was really amazing.
Yeah, it
And
really was.
I was working for a guy who had been in he'd been a grad student while I was an undergrad, and he really liked my work. I was his assistant on his graduate project, on his thesis project. And he said, "Hey, I've got this job opening." So I went up there and loved it, freelanced a little bit around the area. But yeah, this is what I've done this literally since I was 12 years old. I've been in theater
Amazing.
one way or another.
Yeah.
And when I was in New Orleans, I spent some time at NOCA, which is a high school of creative arts in New Orleans. And I was a little bit more multidisciplined back then because I played a couple of instruments. I worked in the theater program, and then it was really easy if you had worked or if you had been through NOCA and you knew the right people. Suddenly, you could get overhire work with the unions. So I got to work stagehand gigs and things like that around town. Which, if you've ever been to New Orleans, there are 30 theaters in the greater downtown area,
Really?
and then hundreds and hundreds of music venues all over the place.
Wow.
Have you been to
I've been to New Orleans, but it was just like a drive.
You did a drive-through.
Yeah.
Yeah. You picked up beignets and you were gone.
Honestly, I'm sorry to say that's exactly what we did. That's
With who?
With my well, I've been twice. One of which
Wait, you drove through twice?
I've been to New Orleans twice. So with the last job I had, I was a music director at a pretty big church in Texas. But before that position, I started on their like AV team, and they sent me out on like one of their like high school choir mission trips. You just set up on the side of the road and you sing whatever songs. And we were in New Orleans, and that was a cool experience. But I didn't get to like wander. What's up, Jodi?
No, I'm trying to imagine you on the side of the road with a bunch of kids singing various hymns.
It was an interesting. It wasn't even like. Yeah, it was kind of a. Dang, this is weird to say. It was kind of a bait and switch, right? So they would start with like signed, sealed, delivered, and they'd have all the like choreography type thing, and then they'd go into like the more of the ministerial side of things. Quiet, Heather.
Sneaky.
So cult recruiting.
It
by
was-
the side of the
I didn't
road.
say it. I didn't say
That's
it. He
why-
said it.
Dude, the
He
only
said it.
people by the side of the road in New Orleans that I ever interacted with were the old guys selling crawfish in the bags. I mean, that's it. Like everybody else, you steer clear.
That's
Because
yeah.
they're going to ask you, I know where you got your shoes from.
Yeah.
No, not even from.
Yeah.
I dropped
I know where you got your shoes. I know where you got
Yeah.
your shoes.
And then you feel obligated to give them $20 because you're scared, but then you shouldn't have because what are they going to do?
It was funny. We took the kids to New Orleans last year. And I said, we're going to go to Jackson Square. Don't talk to anybody.
Nice.
Especially the little kids, because they will scam you out
Really?
of every
Didn't
dollar you
Sadie
got
actually
in your
didn't?
pocket.
Was it Sadie that somebody actually
Yeah.
tried?
Yeah.
Oh no!
Yeah.
All
I
right,
think that was funny.
good to know.
It's
I
nice,
mean, if we
it's nice to know some things never
Well,
change.
the only time I ever got scammed was when I went with my ex-husband. And we were walking around, and it's like you have that Midwestern need to
Oh,
like
yeah.
talk to that person. And every other time I've been with people who either lived there or currently live there and work downtown there. So I never had any of those interactions. It wasn't until this one time. And that should have been my clue.
But yeah, and then the second time it was driving to Florida, and it was literally that stopped beignets at a really nice little boutique like hotel with the kids, and then we left the next morning. It was, but that was about it.
Drive by New Orleans.
That's exactly
That's
what
the way
it
it
was.
happens,
Yeah,
man.
yeah.
That's the way it happens.
But honestly, I really, I mean,
Even
there's
Steph should go.
so much, history and culture. My wife and I are very morbid which is unfortunate, very morbid when we travel.
They have the Museum of Death.
That's the
It
kind
was
of
closed when we went.
Oh,
Sadie wanted to go.
That's the kind of stuff we're
There are
into.
like 6 or 7 different cemetery tours that are just fascinating.
that's the stuff we want to do.
We
And
did
it's amazing.
We did one of the haunted walking tours, and
Yeah.
that was really cool.
That's fun.
That's we were.
we did it too, but we didn't pay for it. We just kind of followed.
She just fell in
Slid
line.
in.
We were like, our Airbnb is on this side of town.
There you go.
We just happened to be going with you.
We were in Portland, Maine, a couple years back, and it was almost around Halloween time. I wanted to get out to Salem, but then it was like, oh man, get out to Salem on Halloween
That's
sounds like a
craziness. It's
nightmare.
crazy. You don't
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah, it's
So
like
we were
Carnival.
in Portland, Maine, and we did a haunted cemetery tour because that's kind of what we do. We go and find like the oldest headstones.
Yeah.
I love that kind of stuff. And I know New Orleans actually. What was the big hospital there?
Charity?
Charity.
Yeah, City Hospital and Charity. Yeah.
They had
Used to
one
drive
of the
people there all the time.
original operating theaters. And
Mm-hmm.
man, I'm just fascinated by that stuff. And I'd love to. Anyway, sorry, that's a tangent.
No,
No,
man.
that's awesome.
It's the thing about New Orleans is that it's an incredibly easy city, right?
Yeah.
And that's the draw, that's the appeal, and that's also the danger of it, right? Because had I stayed in New Orleans, I would be this overweight bachelor with a very healthy drinking habit. And, I would just be chatting up the girls at the bar. Where you at, darling? That would be it. Like I probably never would have gotten off my my stool at Jean Lafitte. But there's something about taking your son to the bar where you used to just absolutely waste all your time.
Okay.
And,
All right.
and seeing that the place has not changed
That's awesome.
in the exception of all the damn TV screens.
Yeah, the TVs.
That was bizarre.
He was rather disappointed.
I
that there
was.
were
I'm telling you,
TVs everywhere.
technology's ruining everything.
But
As we sit here on microphones.
ruined,
I know, right?
ruined my
Recording.
bar. Yeah.
Recording
Yeah.
and yeah.
So why high school? Why are we dealing with high school adolescence?
Who else is going to?
Yeah, well, there's that.
That's
No,
a good answer.
I hear middle school's worse.
I don't know that I have the patience for middle school.
If you talk to my cousin, she would tell you that middle school is worse because this is where the kids all decide that or they figure out that okay, we can be evil and there are no long-term consequences.
Okay.
Right? And then you've got John Mulaney who says, middle school kids are the ones that will find that one flaw in you and they will exploit it immediately and they know just how to do it. And then, boom, it's all over after that. I don't know. I think high school kids are interesting because the Jello's kind of setting, but not
Proto-humans.
quite.
They're
Yeah,
proto-humans.
Proto-humans.
Yeah,
Proto-humans?
they're not
Yeah.
quite there yet.
Yeah.
I have all the patience in the world for my students. They
None
might
for
not
me,
know that.
but,
Don't tell them I have that. But I have very little patience for the adults.
Sure.
I work with really good adults, so I can't complain too much. But yeah, it's being who I needed when I was
Okay.
a kid.
Yeah.
And it was never my plan to be a teacher. That was never thought that was going to happen. It was completely. I got the job offer at Andover, and that was I went into that knowing it was a short-term job because it was a 2-year contract, and I convinced them to make the job permanent, and I was like, I could be here forever. And Bruce said, you don't want to be
You
here
don't want to
forever.
be here forever.
He said, don't do that. And I'm like, well, why not? He said, you stay here, you're never going to leave, and you're never going to grow. You're never going to get better at it.
Mm.
And as it turns out, they did not rehire me. I still applied. Went through the process. I had a really good shot, and they hired somebody with an MFA. That's fine.
Wait,
but
what's an MFA?
Master's in
Oh,
Fine
okay.
Arts.
Okay, gotcha.
And it turned out to be a really good thing, because I probably would have just stayed there, and
Sure.
and that was a different group of kids. It was a different kind of kid.
It's different, a whole different atmosphere there.
A lot of the same, Jello still setting.
Yeah.
International Jello. But I really enjoyed it, and I knew at that point I wanted to stay in TYA, Theater for Young Audiences, and work with kids, but it was not my plan to be a teacher.
Sure.
So the job that brought me from Massachusetts to Wisconsin was First Stage Children's Theater. So I worked there for several years, and before the job at Bradford sort of accidentally.
As did I somehow.
Yeah.
That was weird.
So safe to say you guys have put in your 10,000 hours.
Oh, yeah.
Like
Well, Jodi has. I mean, she put in 10,000 hours last week.
Sure. From our conversation before we started, it sounds
Yeah.
like you guys have no downtime. Like
She doesn't have downtime.
Not
I don't sit
She doesn't
still well.
believe in it.
Sure.
She doesn't believe in it. Idle time for Jodi is wasted time.
You know,
It's a wasted time. It's choosing to. I don't sit still well.
yeah,
Alan says I got about 2 days in me, and then I start taking the house apart. So
Yeah, that's true.
I feel that.
That's true.
Yeah. Do you get, I was thinking about this in my own character flaws. Do you get bothered, perturbed when you're in work mode? And if you're like me, it's all the time. And then someone is not in work mode.
I used to.
Okay.
I used to.
You've grown out of that.
I've gotten better about that.
Okay.
Everybody's got their own pace,
Sure.
and it bothers me more in the people that are closest to me.
Of course.
Sorry, babe.
Well,
it's
what
funny
she's not saying,
when I'm not okay.
what
when
she's
I'm
not saying is that we have one son who's very much like her.
Okay.
And will not sit idle and is always working or doing something and is always working towards the bigger, better thing.
Gotcha.
What he can do. He's always pushing boundaries and
Okay.
figuring stuff out. And it's phenomenal. I mean, it's so neat to see that, and knowing where he got that is, it's a carbon copy in a lot of ways.
Awesome.
And then there's a boy who is much more like me, who is, you know what? I've done my time today. Thank you very much. And now I don't have to do anything.
Sure.
So, I think that there's room for everybody under the Williams household roof for that type of thing.
But I think our Brody. Sorry, Brody. I'm going to call you out. I think Brody's attitude and approach to life has given me patience for other people, because I can't force him, and I don't want to. Well, I did for a long time want to force him, but you can't do that to people. And so being Brody's mom has made me a better person
Do you
in
feel
a
like
lot of ways.
being a high school teacher has also prepared you for motherhood?
No,
No.
No.
no. And I can give them back.
Yeah.
Sure.
I can, at the end of the day, I will do just about anything for them, and I love them dearly, and I really do. But at the end of the day, I am not responsible for the people that they are.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like I am responsible for the people that my own children are,
Sure.
even though that's not true.
Mm-hmm.
I can put in all of the ingredients, and that fascinates me. Actually, I learned that really early. I will say I learned that from teaching. Having siblings and knowing that you've got these amazing parents and they're putting the same ingredients into both of these kids, and they are so different.
Same ingredients, different recipe.
Same
Yeah.
ingredient. Oh, man. And it's like that there's no rhyme or reason. And you'd think you'd get that from your own family, because my sister and I are very different.
Oh, yeah.
Easy,
Sorry.
easy, Alan.
My sister and I are very, like, people don't even know we're related.
It's strange because Ben and Brody are, I mean, aside from the striking physical similarities that they have, thanks to me, sorry guys, you could not have two more different boys.
Mm-hmm.
They are just, I mean, there is there is quite a bit of commonality to them once you get a little bit
Core
below
value.
the surface.
Core value.
They're both incredibly good people. And they do have a lot of the same enthusiasms.
Mm-hmm.
But the way they go about things, their outlook, the way they interpret personal challenges, shall we say?
But that was
Two very different people.
But that was something that it had just never occurred to me.
Yeah.
Even though, growing up, my sister and I are very different. Same wonderful parents, totally different. And I think my sister and I are, again, we're both good people, but very, very different.
Yeah. But at the same time, you both share a lot of interesting core values because the work that Cam does is phenomenal and challenging and, helping hundreds, if not thousands of people on a daily basis. So,
But that's definitely something that we all learn as we get older is that we have, even though we had the same parents, we didn't have the same parents.
yeah.
You have to parent each child differently.
Yeah.
You have to respect their differences. Because that's what my brother and I talk about all the time. Like, we have conversations about our childhood where I'm like, no. But his experience with both my parents is completely different than my experience is, I mean, we were only 3 years apart, but we also had different time with my mom alone and different time with my dad alone and different time. Well, my dad didn't come home until I was in 5th grade. He was in the Navy.
Okay.
So it's like you get different people out of that and then different experiences in the fact of like what my dad decided to bond over with my brother or vice versa. And then also like you have one kid has more personality like you, one has more like you. And sometimes there are certain things that you can do with one child that you're like, oh, this is so fun.
Right.
And then there's one kid where you're like, you can focus on
Oh,
something better with the other one.
100%.
Yeah.
I also find it really funny, especially with her parents. You talk to her mom, and it was about what a perfect child Jodi was. Never gave him any trouble. Always just angelic and great and whatnot. And her father, of course, will say, "Who are you remembering?" Like they, it's talk about the different parents for different kids and such. It's
you older?
fascinating.
I'm the older. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
That's how it goes. My siblings will say the same thing. I was the baby, and my older brother. That's what everybody says, and I don't see why. When actually one of the girls who works here, she found out. She thought I was an only child because I give off the only child energy, I guess. But she was like,
Well, you kind of.
Yeah, I guess so. Because I was 4 years younger than my sister, so by the time she graduated college, I was just kind of going in, or high school. I was just going into high school, and then 7 years younger than my brother, and so I was kind of the only child for a long time. And they always give my parents grief too, because they're like, Ralf got to do everything. But growing up, my parents being pastors and growing up super, super conservative.
Oh, sure.
They couldn't go to movie theaters. They couldn't do anything. And then I come along and they're like, yeah, I guess it's fine.
Well, the first two turned out okay.
Yeah,
So, if we lose you, it's all right.
They got the air and
Go
the
ahead.
spare. And
And then they have the experiment.
the experiment. That's exactly what it was.
Or the I'm too tired for this.
Yes, that's exactly
That's
what it was.
always the joke about, the first child, you're so careful. And it's like, oh, they're falling. Oh, no. And, don't let them run around and do anything. And the second kid, it's like, you good?
Yeah.
Rub some dirt on it.
Yeah. Lick your fingers and it'll be fine.
Well, the other funny thing with our boys was that we were the first members of our little friend group to have kids.
Oh, cool.
Right? Because
Sure.
we're older than our friend group. And of course, we get the kids first. So, like, this Ben comes along and he was like the toy for everybody, right? And
He was everybody's kid.
Yeah.
Oh,
very
he
much so.
he grew up with all sorts of surrogate aunts and uncles and just, had a time of it and milked it for all it was worth too, as I recall. And then Brody comes along, poor kid, almost 6 years later, and they're like, we've done that. You're fine. You're fine. It turned into, hey, come here, let's play, to, hey, come here, we want to do stuff to you. It was very weird, those guys.
I mean, there is definitely something to be said about the community that is built within, going back to the whole like theater thing. Because I do remember Ben being around.
Ever present.
Yeah. And he was around like for rehearsals. Like my parents always joke, kind of parenthetically, my parents always joke, when I was in high school, I remember them saying, why are your grades so bad and you're always at school? Like you should have great grades. I'm like, I didn't care about any of that stuff. Sorry, kiddos and parents. I could care less about academics, which in a way. But what really drove me and what I loved was the time that we were able to spend within that community, within the theater. I mean, staying there till 9 at night, just running rehearsals. And granted, no one had cell phones. So I do remember you would bring a book because Holly was pretty strict on like, you're sitting and you're waiting and you're going to focus until we're ready for you.
Do your homework.
Yeah, do your homework. And so people had books, people had homework. I never had either. I was just kind of talking to everyone else. I was trying not to be loud and get yelled at. But yeah, just the community. I remember Ben running around vividly, actually.
Yeah.
I remember him running around, and he was just kind of hung out, with all the other high school kids, and it was a beautiful time for sure. And I guess that's what the arts kind of
it does
cultivate.
It does. And I was talking to Carl and Heather last night. It's the same thing in the music realm. The kids come with because it's what you do. It's not just your job. It's your life.
Sure.
And so you make your kids a part of it. And I was so lucky that I got to bring my kids into that. And they grew up in that, whether they do it or not. Ben still designs, and he is an artist. He's an amazing artist. Brody, maybe. Who knows? When he figures out.
He's an artist.
He is an artist, but whether
he's a
he does it
prolific writer
professionally.
as well. It's just a question of what he wants to do with that. But
That's awesome.
I think that's you keep using the word community, and that's what it is.
Yeah.
And I think that unconsciously, it was setting an example for the rest of these kids to show how open this world is. I mean, we get students that are continually saying, this is the reason I come to school.
Yeah.
And
I can see that.
and it's the same with athletics. It's the same with
Sure.
sports.
Sure.
There's a reason that these kids come to school. There's a reason that they're going to be there. And if you reinforce, look, you've got to hit your core curriculum. You have to be up to snuff to continue to do that. Then that is a very material way that you're demonstrating what the arts are doing for you in your community.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
I know we're winding down. I don't want to keep you guys too long, but I remember being in stagecraft on September 11th, 2001.
So do I.
That was the class that I was in. And I remember everything going down. I remember you bringing a TV into it.
Herschel had actually brought the TV.
Oh,
in.
yeah.
Because I didn't have to be there first thing in the morning because for whatever reason, I was on the road when all that happened. And so by the time I got there, Herschel had the TV in the room, but we didn't know anything yet.
Yeah.
It was just a terrible accident.
That was such a weird day.
Oh.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. And it's like it's our, like Kennedy moment, right? Like,
Yeah. Oh no, that's yeah.
But I do remember it being an open conversation. Like we were seeing all this stuff go down, and we in our, how'd you say it? Not gelled or
Unset jello.
Unset jello. In that time, we have questions. We're thinking, what is happening? Is it going to happen in Chicago or here?
Right.
And I do remember there being like conversations happening. And in a way, I just feel so fortunate that in that time I was able to be in the theater.
It is incredibly important. And one of the things that I really love about how I've been able to do my job is, we build scenery. I teach basic tool use and wiring and all that stuff. But we're also we're about communication, and we are about understanding the world through storytelling. So
Sure.
if we can't have those conversations, then we are missing the point.
Yeah.
And if you guys as students, and if my current students now don't feel safe, regardless of their background, bent, understanding of the world, what they thought before they came in the room, if they don't feel safe enough to be there in those moments, then I'm not doing something right.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't feel like I have to stretch really hard
Sure.
to do that because it feels very natural, because that's what, to me, that is what the point and the purpose of theater and the arts is creating that space. So of course that just became a natural extension when those things happen and when celebratory things happen too.
Yeah.
It's
Of
not-
course. Yeah.
Not just the horrible things. But.
Yeah, absolutely. I do remember us doing Parade.
Mm.
And I remember
Oh.
Parade being such a heavy show. So
Yeah.
Parade, for you guys who don't know, Parade is a show about a murder of a young girl that happened outside of Atlanta, Georgia. And there was an outsider who came to Marietta, Georgia to run one of the pencil factories. His name was Leo Frank. It's a true story based on this man's life. And because he was a New York Jew, the people there decided to blame him because he was different.
Yeah.
And that is one of the things that I remember. I remember, we're these malleable children, but we're talking about it, and we are seeing the world in a different light, but in a way that brings light to darkness. And I don't know, it's just
You can't shy away from those things. You
Yeah.
can't. As educators, it's incredibly important. And in theater, that is the best way to tell those stories and to open the door for those conversations.
sure.
Because it's a safe place. You're looking at, when you see a show that has difficult material, you can separate it. You can give it that layer of separation that people need
Yeah.
to have the very important conversation.
The open conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, especially since a lot of kids don't have that ability at home. Like I feel like a lot of people don't recognize your child is with these people. They need to feel safe. They need to be able to talk to them about anything. And sometimes that trumps what's going on at home. And it's not just like you hear all the time in the news at this point, like just teach our children. Well, it's like,
Right.
no, we have to take care of them educational or emotionally as well, because if they're not emotionally mature, they're not going to understand anything.
Well, and they have to be able to have the conversation with the people around them
Mm-hmm.
without feeling threatened or
Mhm.
being threatening. You have to be able to do that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I know for me, that took a long time to learn how to do that in school, I didn't learn it in school or at home. So it was like something that I learned as I was an adult, but like talking to my friend, I have a friend who works in Waukegan now, and she is that teacher that the kids literally go to her classroom right now for no reason. There's kids
Right.
that she's like, I don't even know who you are.
Yeah.
You're not on my
Yeah,
roster.
okay.
Where are you?
I get that. all the
Yes.
time.
Yes, you do.
That's
She does.
Yes.
She collects strays.
That's
I
what
do, I
that
collect
little
strays.
room in front of the Black Box
Yeah.
Theater
Yeah.
was. There was a
Still
couch
is.
in there, and
Still is.
Yeah, we had to get rid of the couch though. It got gross. So
Yeah.
Oh,
it was pretty grimy when we were there. So that was a while back.
But I think that's part of the mission of educational theater. There should not be any idea that's so dangerous that you can't discuss.
Sure.
And you can't, and it's teaching kids how to articulate those feelings and those fears and those
Yeah.
concerns. And one of the things that I just love about working in an educational theater space is that you have those conversations to inform the story you're going to tell. And if you can't tell a story unless you have some sort of personal connection to it, even in an academic sense. So it's teaching the stories to those students so they can then tell it in their own voice. That is such a powerful thing. And I think that allows those kids to, as we keep saying, it allows that jello to set all the better because they are forming their own ideas about who they are through the stories that they're able to tell.
Yeah.
Is this Jell-O with like fruit set inside of it too?
For some of them, yeah.
Okay.
Sometimes
Some of them it's hot dogs.
And then some of them is hot dogs or tuna
Olives.
or olives. Yeah.
chopped
yeah.
up. It's just a beautiful array.
It's an
Guys,
amazing melange.
Lastly, I know I've kept you guys too long. Thank you guys for
No, this
making
is nice.
time and hanging out. Closing questions. This was a heavy one. What do you want your legacy to be?
Oh my gosh.
Hey, we're not getting any younger, guys.
I think, honestly, the fact that even right now, I can look at what I've done for the past, next year will be 25 years.
Mhm.
And I still have kids that come up and say, I would never have made it at a high school if it hadn't have been for your class. I don't know how it gets any better than that.
Sure.
I mean, I've gotten to do what I've never not paid the bills being an artist. I've always been able to do exactly what I love.
She's carried us for a number of years being an artist.
Exactly what I love for a living. I've gotten to do it with amazing people. I don't want to say collected a trail because that sounds weird, but I've maintained relationships with equally amazing people. And, let the record show I'm pointing at Ralf. And those former students are now colleagues that I get to work with.
Sure.
Yeah, that's neat.
And that's phenomenal. And it's exactly kind of accidentally and without really trying too hard, I got exactly what I wanted when I was 12. And that's pretty phenomenal. And now if I can show other people, if I can show students that, yeah, you can do that. You can decide right now, I want to be this, and I'm going to go after it, and I'm going to put in the time, and I'm going to dream about it, and it's going to be my thing. Or if it takes until they're 30 to figure it out. But if I can let them know that they can do it, I can't think of a better legacy.
I think it's a rare position to be in life that you are living your legacy.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Because I mean, exactly what you just said. I mean, so many people that you have, well, both of you through your family have touched in your life, in our lives. I mean, that's the legacy, man. I wouldn't be here without you people.
I have to ask, how quickly did Ralph blossom in your class? Did he start off pretty shy?
We're still waiting.
Oh.
I'm hoping that one
I
of these days he'll come out of his shell.
I
and,
don't know that he
really-
was ever shy.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I was definitely like,
It took him a couple years to get on stage, but he was.
yeah. And honestly, I loved both equally. I loved behind the scenes doing stagecraft, like all that stuff was because my dad kind of raised me in kind of that environment. Like we were always doing something, working with our hands, building extra rooms in the basement or something like that. So that was always kind of second nature. And then, I have a church background. So being on stage, singing,
In front of people, yeah.
performing in quote unquote, I loved both of those things. So, I mean, I don't know if I was ever super
I don't
quiet.
recall you ever being.
I had big insecurities, but what high
Oh
school
my God, that was everybody.
what high
Yeah.
school kid doesn't?
Uh-uh.
Yeah.
No, I don't think shy would ever be a word that I would
No.
put with him.
No.
I guess not. I just picture him as nervous about things because of his background, but that's just my own prejudice.
Yeah,
think.
yeah. That's why I didn't want to say the whole bait and switch mission trip thing because I know Heather, and this is why I think this works so well because we're so diametrically opposed in our belief systems. Like I'm super conservative and I'm a pastor's kid, and she is very much Salem witch trials, would have been burned at the stake type person.
They didn't
Okay.
burn him. They hung him.
and I know that you guys are in good company right now. And but what about you, Alan?
What about me?
What's your legacy?
husband, father, friend.
I love that. Absolutely.
That's I never thought I was going to have what I have.
Mm-hmm.
Never in my life. I mean, and I can attribute almost every good thing that I have in my life to my wife. So that would be just fine by me.
Can't add anything to that.
I don't think I can.
You're gonna make us all
you're
tear
gonna-
up.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he's has 2 amazing boys. That's pretty.
That's a pretty damn good legacy for me.
He's also brilliant. So
Yeah,
he's low key brilliant. He
we
doesn't
can
tell
we
anybody.
can tell. We can tell. Guys, thank you so much for swinging by. Thanks for talking all things arts and school and education and background, and thanks.
No, thank you for having
Yeah.
us.
Yeah, of course. I'll let you get on to your Sunday. Bye.
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 Let's go.
Well, that's a wrap for today's episode of Y'all Be Good. And as always, a reminder that we are a project of Little Lion Cuts. We hope you've enjoyed these stories just as much as we have enjoyed sharing them. Every family has a story, and we're just grateful that we get to hear yours too. If you've enjoyed today's episode and you think someone else might need to hear it, don't forget to share this podcast with them. And hey, while you're at it, be sure to subscribe and leave us a review. That really does go a long way. You definitely don't want to miss out on any of the real, raw, and inspiring conversations we've got lined up. And we'd love to hear your stories too. So go ahead and find us on Instagram at y'allbegoodpod or drop us a message with your thoughts. And until next time, y'all be good.